The heart of the swarm pulsed at the edge of the galaxy like a wound in space. It was not a ship or a planet. It was something older. A living construct larger than moons, made of flesh and metal and the remains of 1,000 consumed civilizations. From its core, the swarm received its commands, its purpose, its endless hunger. The United Fleet gathered before it. Thousands of ships from every surviving species. At the front, human vessels formed the spearhead. They had earned that position with blood. Li Junho stood on the bridge of his assault ship, staring at the nightmare ahead. Beside him, Yunhana checked her weapon for the 100th time. "Are you afraid?" she asked quietly. "Yes," Junho admitted. "I am always afraid. But fear is just a feeling. It does not control what I do." She smiled slightly. "You sound like my grandfather. He used to say fear is the first step toward courage." He was wise. The fleet began its advance. The swarm emerged from the heart like blood from a wound. Millions of creatures, more than anyone had ever seen. They screamed across space, a wave of death and hunger, but the United Fleet did not retreat. They had learned from humans. They had remembered how to fight. Ships exploded on both sides. Fire filled the darkness. Creatures died by the millions, but more kept coming. The heart spawned them endlessly, an infinite army of nightmares. Junho's assault ship punched through the outer defenses and crashed into the heart's surface. His team poured out, weapons blazing. They fought through corridors of living flesh, following the signal that would lead them to the core. Hannah fought beside him. She was young, but she had learned well. Her blade moved with precision. Her shots never missed. Around them, other legend teams fought their own battles. One by one, they fell, not in defeat, but in victory. Each death bought another meter of ground. Each sacrifice brought the end closer. Minho led the deepest assault. His team reached the inner chambers where the swarm's central intelligence waited. It was vast and ancient, a mind that had consumed galaxies before this one. "You cannot stop us," it whispered in their minds. "We are eternal. We are hunger. We are the end of all things." Minho raised his weapon. "You talk too much." The battle in the core was brutal. Warriors fell one after another, but they never stopped fighting. They never retreated. They gave everything, and when everything was not enough, they gave more. Finally, only Minho remained standing before the central intelligence. His body was broken. His weapons were empty, but his spirit was unbroken. "How?" the intelligence asked. "How do you still fight?" "You are dying." Minho laughed. It hurt, but he laughed anyway. "You do not understand us. You never will. We are humans. We do not fight because we can win. We fight because fighting is who we are." He activated the device on his chest. A bomb strong enough to crack moons. He had carried it from Earth for this moment. "Remember this," he said. "Remember what the small, weak species did when you came for their galaxy." The explosion was visible from space. The heart shuddered and screamed. Its connection to the swarm shattered like glass. Across the battlefield, the creatures stopped. Their coordination broke. They turned on each other, confused, lost without their guiding intelligence. The United Fleet surged forward. What had been an impossible battle became a rout. Ships hunted down swarm creatures by the thousands. Within hours, the enemy that had threatened to consume the galaxy was scattered and dying. In the ruins of the heart, Jinho carried Hana through collapsing corridors. She was wounded badly. He was not much better. But he would not leave her behind. "We need to go," she whispered. "The structure is failing, I know." He kept moving. One step at a time, they reached an escape pod just as the heart began its final collapse. Jinho strapped Hana in and launched the pod into space. Behind them, the greatest enemy the galaxy had ever known died in fire and silence. Rescue ships found them hours later. They were barely alive. But they were alive. Years passed, the galaxy rebuilt itself. New alliances formed. Old hatreds faded. The species that had once mocked humanity now treated them with deep respect on Station Nexus Prime. Where the Council had once laughed at human warnings, a great memorial stood. Statues of human legends watched over the chamber where decisions were made. Their faces were carved in stone, but their spirits lived in every heart that remembered. Yun Hannah, now an admiral, visited the memorial with her young daughter. The girl looked up at the statues with wide eyes. "Who are they, mother?" Hannah smiled. "They are the ones who saved us all. Warriors from long ago who slept for centuries, waiting for the day they would be needed. Were they strong? Very strong. But that is not why they won." Hannah knelt beside her daughter. "They won because they never gave up. No matter how hard things got, no matter how scared they were, they kept fighting until the end." High Arbiter Velas approached them slowly. He was old now, his blue skin faded with age. He bowed deeply to Hannah. "Admiral Yun, it is good to see you." "High Arbiter." He looked up at the statues. "We will never forget what humanity did, what they sacrificed. I have made certain that every child in the Union learns the truth." Hannah nodded. "Good, because we made sure you will not forget." Velas understood. The statues, the memorials, the stories taught in every school, they were not just honors. They were reminders, warnings. Never underestimate humanity. Never dismiss their warnings. Never forget what they can become. Hannah's daughter tugged at her sleeve. "Mother, will I be a legend someday?" Hannah picked her up and held her close. "You already are. Every human is. We carry the fire of all who came before us. The ones who crawled out of the mud and refused to stay small. The ones who looked at the stars and reached for them. Anyway," she looked at the statues one last time. Junho, all the others who had given. Everything. Being a legend does not mean being the strongest. It means being the one who never gives up. Who keeps fighting even when hope is gone. Who lights a fire in the darkness and refuses to let it die. The little girl smiled. "I can do that. I know you can." Hannah kissed her forehead. "That is what it means to be human." They walked out of the memorial together. Above them, the stars shone bright and eternal. And somewhere in the endless darkness, the fire of humanity burned on. It would never go out. It never had. The crimson nebula burned with the light of 1,000 dying ships. This was the last defensive line before the galactic core. If the swarm broke through here, nothing could stop it. Trillions would die. Civilizations that had existed for millennia would end. The galaxy itself would become a graveyard. Commander Desha stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching the enemy approach. The swarm filled her screens like a living shadow. Millions of creatures, each one a horror of teeth and claws and hunger. They moved together in perfect unity, driven by a single purpose: consume. Beside her fleet, the human ships waited in silence. They were smaller than Union vessels, but there was something different about them. Something dangerous. "Human commander," Desha said through the communication channel. "My fleet will take the center. Your ships can support from the flanks." A calm voice replied. "With respect, Commander, that formation will fail. The swarm attacks weak points. They will break your center in minutes." Desha's scales darkened with annoyance. "We have fought wars for 10,000 years. We do not need advice from humans." "No," the voice agreed. "You need our help. That is why you called us. Let us help you properly, or we will all die here today." Desha wanted to argue, but she remembered Valoria. She remembered 2,000 ships dying in 6 hours. Pride had cost them everything already. "What do you suggest?" she asked quietly. The human formation shifted. Instead of neat lines, they spread into scattered groups. It looked like chaos. "The swarm expects order," the human commander explained. "They expect enemies to stand and fight in formation, so we will not give them order. We will give them chaos, guerrilla tactics, hit and run. Draw them in, then strike from angles they do not expect." The battle began. At first, Desha thought the humans were insane. Their ships darted through the swarm like insects, taking hits, retreating, attacking again from different directions. It seemed suicidal. Then she noticed something. The swarm was confused. Their unified movement started to break apart. Groups of creatures chased human ships while others lost direction. Gaps appeared in their formation. Now, the human commander ordered. Human ships turned as one and poured fire into those gaps. The swarm screamed, a sound that echoed through space itself. Creatures died by the thousands. The SSIA watched in amazement. How did they know? Her first officer studied the tactical display. They are not fighting like soldiers. They are fighting like dotters, like predators? On a swarm hive ship, Li Jianho led his boarding team through corridors of nightmare. The walls were made of flesh. The air smelled of death. Creatures attacked from every shadow, every corner, every surface. His soldiers fought with weapons and blades and bare hands when necessary. They did not retreat. They did not hesitate. When one fell, others stepped over the body and kept moving. Ho carried wounds that would kill an ordinary soldier. Blood ran down his face. His left arm hung broken at his side. But he kept fighting. He always kept fighting. The core is ahead. One of his soldiers shouted. They burst into a central chamber. A massive creature waited there. The intelligence that controlled this section of the swarm, it was vast and terrible. A mountain of flesh and hunger. Junho did not hesitate. He raised his weapon and charged. Across the battlefield, alien commanders watched the feeds from human helmet cameras. They saw men and women fighting monsters in close combat. They saw soldiers laughing as they bled. They saw warriors refusing to die even when their bodies failed them. What are they? A Corvethi general whispered. Commander Thisha did not answer. She had no words for what she was seeing. When the hive ship exploded, the cheer from human ships echoed across all communication channels. But there was no time to celebrate. The battle continued. Hours passed. The human tactics spread through the Allied fleet. Other species began to adapt, to fight in new ways. The swarm pushed forward, but slower now. For the first time, they met resistance they could not overwhelm. During a brief pause in the fighting, Vesha's ship pulled alongside a human cruiser. She transported across to meet the human leaders face to face. Choi Minho waited for her in the command center. He was covered in blood, some his own, most belonging to the enemy. His eyes were calm. You fight like nothing I have ever seen, Vesha said. Your soldiers throw themselves into death without fear. How is this possible? Minho smiled slightly. It was not a happy smile. Because we have always been prey. Desha tilted her head, confused. Prey? Your species became powerful early. You were predators from the beginning. You forgot what fear feels like. Minho looked out at the battle still raging beyond the windows. Humans evolved differently. We were small, weak, every animal on our planet could kill us. We survived not because we were the strongest, but because we never stopped fighting. He turned to face her fully. We carry fear in our blood. We know what it feels like to be hunted. And that fear taught us something your species never learned. What? That giving up means death. That retreat means extinction. That the only way to survive is to fight until you cannot fight anymore, and then fight some more. Vesha stared at him for a long moment. Then she bowed her head. I understand now. You are not soldiers. You are survivors. We are both, Minho said. And today we will teach the swarm what that means. The battle raged for 3 more days. Losses were heavy on all sides. But slowly, impossibly, the tide began to turn. The swarm was pushed back. Their endless advance stopped for the first time since they entered the galaxy. When it was over, Minho addressed the combined fleet. His voice carried across 1,000,000 ships. Today we proved we can hurt them. Today we proved they can bleed. But the war is not over. A larger wave is coming. The true test lies ahead. He paused. Tomorrow we will teach them what extinction feels like. The fleet roared in response. Humans and aliens together. Warriors united by blood and fire. The legends had shown the galaxy what humanity could do. Now it was time to finish what they started. Lee Junho opened his eyes and saw a world he did not recognize. The last thing he remembered was the burning sky over Seoul, the screams of his soldiers, the enemy ships blocking out the sun. He remembered fighting until his arms could no longer hold his weapon. He remembered falling. He remembered choosing to sleep instead of die. Now he stood in a metal chamber, filled with strange lights and humming machines. A young woman in a military uniform watched him carefully. She had kind eyes but a soldier's posture. "Welcome back," she said. "My name is Yoon Hana. I am here to help you adjust." Junho looked at his hands. They felt strange, strong but unfamiliar, as if they belonged to someone else. "How long?" he asked. 412 years. The number hit him like a blow. 400 years. Everyone he knew was dead. His wife, his children, his friends. All gone, turned to dust while he slept in frozen darkness. "I know this is hard," Hannah said gently. "Take your time." But there was no time. Around him, other pods were opening. Other warriors were waking. The chamber filled with confused voices, questions in languages that had changed over centuries. Junho forced himself to focus. He was a soldier. Grief could wait. Duty could not. "Tell me why we are awake," he said. Hannah explained everything. The Galactic Union, the alien species who saw humans as weak. The warnings that were ignored. And the swarm, the great devouring tide that was eating the galaxy alive. Humanity prepared in secret, Hannah continued. We built ships. We developed weapons. And we preserved our greatest warriors for the day they would be needed. She looked at Junho with something like wonder in her eyes. "You are those warriors. You are the legends." Junho listened in silence. When she finished, he asked only one question. "Where do I report for duty?" Over the following weeks, the legends learned about the new world. They trained with modern weapons and studied enemy tactics. They were fast learners. They had always been fast learners. Survival required nothing less, but they were also human. At night, Junho would find quiet corners and stare at the stars. He thought about his family. He wondered if they had lived good lives after he was gone. He hoped they had found peace. Hannah often joined him during these quiet moments. She did not speak. She simply sat beside him, offering silent company. Junho appreciated that more than words could say. One evening, Choi Minho gathered all the legends in the great hall of the underground facility. Over 3,000 warriors stood before him. Men and women from different eras, different wars, different worlds. But they all shared the same fire in their eyes. Minho was old even before his long sleep. Now he seemed ancient. But his voice was strong and his spirit was unbroken. "I know you are confused," he began. "I know you are grieving. Everything you loved is gone. Everyone you knew has turned to dust. This is the price we paid when we chose to sleep." He paused, looking at their faces. Some were crying silently. Others stood rigid, holding their pain inside. "But we did not sleep to rest," Minho continued. "We slept to rise. We slept because we knew that someday humanity would face darkness again. And when that day came, they would need warriors who remembered what it meant to fight for survival." He raised his fist. "That day has come." The galaxy forgot what humans can become when pushed to the edge. They called us weak. They laughed at our warnings. Now they are dying, and they beg for our help. A murmur ran through the crowd. Some of the warriors looked angry. Why should they save those who mocked them? Minho understood their anger. He felt it too. But anger was a tool, not a master. "We do not fight for their gratitude," he said. "We do not fight for their respect. We fight because it is who we are. We fight because giving up is not in our blood." When our ancestors crawled out of the mud, they did not look at the predators around them and surrender. They picked up rocks. They made spears. They refused to die. His voice rose, filling the hall. "We are the children of those survivors. We carry their fire in our hearts. And now we will show the galaxy what that fire can do. The warriors began to cheer. The sound grew and grew until it shook the walls. These were not the hopeless cries of desperate men. These were the war cries of soldiers who had faced extinction before and won. Later that night, Jin-ho stood at a window overlooking Earth's surface. The planet looked so peaceful from here. So blue and green and alive. Hannah joined him, as she always did. Do they deserve our help? Jin-ho asked. These aliens who laughed at us? Hannah thought about the question for a long time. Maybe not, she finally said. The politicians and leaders who mocked us, maybe they deserve to face the consequences of their arrogance. She turned to look at him. But what about the children? The families? The ordinary people who just want to live their lives? They never laughed at us. They never called us weak. They are just scared and dying. Jin-ho nodded slowly. She was right. War was never about governments or politics. It was about people. Innocent people caught in the fire started by others. That is enough, he said. That is enough reason to fight. Above them, humanity's hidden fleet began to move. Thousands of ships, built in secret over 3 centuries, emerged from hidden bases across the solar system. They were beautiful and deadly, designed for one purpose: to fight the swarm. The legends boarded their transports and joined the fleet. As the ships entered deep space, Jin-ho looked back at Earth one last time. He might never see it again. He might die in the battles ahead. But that was acceptable. Legends did not need to survive. They just needed to fight, and humans had always known how to fight. The first reports came from a small mining colony at the edge of Union space. The miners sent a distress signal at midnight. By morning, the colony was gone. Not destroyed. Not damaged? Gone? The planet's surface had been stripped clean? As if something had eaten it down to the rock. 3 years had passed since Doyun's warning. 3 years of peace and ignorance. 3 years wasted. Now the swarm had arrived. Within weeks, 4 more colonies disappeared. The Union sent scouts to investigate. Only one returned. The pilot was found drifting in an escape pod, his hair turned white and his eyes empty. He spoke only 3 words before dying. They are coming. High Arbiter Velos called an emergency session of the Council. For the first time in centuries, fear filled the great chamber on Station Nexus Prime. What do we know? Velos demanded. His voice was not calm anymore. A military commander stepped forward. Her name was Thesha, and she led the Union's combined fleet. She was tall and strong, with green scales and golden eyes. Her people were warriors, and she had never lost a battle. We know very little, Thesha admitted. The swarm does not behave like any enemy we have faced. They are not ships. They are living creatures, millions of them, moving together like a wave. They consume organic matter, metal, energy, everything. Our weapons hurt them, but there are too many. For every one we kill, 100 more take its place. How many ships do we have? Another delegate asked. 10,000 warships. The largest fleet ever assembled. Then we fight, the Kravathi delegate said. We destroy them. Thesha shook her head slowly. I sent 2,000 ships to defend the Valoria system. Our best ships. Our most experienced crews? She paused. They lasted 6 hours. The chamber fell silent. Valoria was one of the oldest worlds in the Union. 12 billion people lived there. Ancient temples. Great libraries. Centuries of history and culture? How many survivors? Velos asked quietly. None. The word hung in the air like poison. None. 12 billion souls, gone in 6 hours. Panic spread across the galaxy. Species that had ruled their own empires for thousands of years now ran like frightened animals. Refugee ships clogged every transit lane. Governments collapsed. Order broke down. The great and powerful Union began to fall apart. The swarm moved steadily inward toward the galactic core. It did not rush. It did not need to. Nothing could stop it. Velos sat alone in his private chamber. He had not slept in days. Reports covered his desk. Each one brought worse news. Another world gone, another fleet destroyed, another million lives lost. He thought about the human ambassador. He remembered the man's calm voice, his quiet warning. The words he had spoken before leaving the chamber. Do not say we did not try to save you. Veloz closed his 4 eyes. Pride had always been his weakness, the weakness of his entire species. They had ruled the stars so long that they forgot what fear felt like. They forgot that the universe was vast and dark and full of things that did not care about their power or their history. He opened a communication. Channel to Earth. Doyan's face appeared on the screen. He looked older now, tired, but his eyes were still sharp. Hi, Arbiter, Doyan said. His voice held no anger, no satisfaction, only sadness, Ambassador Kong. Veloz forced himself to speak. I am calling to ask for humanity's help. Whatever you can provide. Ships, soldiers, anything. Doyan was quiet for a long moment. You laughed at us. You called us weak. You said we were good only for labor and entertainment. I know. Veloz lowered his head. I was wrong. We were all wrong. Yes, you were. Will you help us? Doyan looked at something off-screen. Then he turned back. You refused to listen? You ignored our warnings for 3 years while we prepared alone. Millions died because of your pride. Veloz felt shame burn in his chest. I know, but we are not like you. Doyan's voice grew stronger. We will help. Not because you deserve it. Not for your gratitude or your apologies. We will help because innocent people are dying. Children who never laughed at us. Families who never called us weak. We will fight for them. Veloz felt something strange in his chest. It took him a moment to recognize it. Hope. Thank you, he whispered. Do not thank us yet. The battle ahead will be harder than anything your people have ever faced. Many will die. Perhaps all of us. Doyan paused. But humanity does not run from hard battles. We never have. The screen went dark. Deep beneath Earth's surface, Director Park Sojin walked through the awakening chamber. The pods were open now. Men and women stood in groups, stretching muscles that had been frozen for centuries. Some wore armor from wars that history had forgotten. Others carried weapons that no longer existed anywhere else in the galaxy. They were confused. The world had changed so much. Everything they knew was gone. Friends, family, home. All dust, but they were soldiers. They adapted. They always did. Sujin stopped before a tall man with scars on his face. His name was Choi Minho, and he was the oldest among them. 800 years ago, he had led the last stand of Seoul when humanity faced extinction for the first time. He had saved millions. Then he had chosen to sleep, to wait for the day he would be needed again. Director, he said. His voice was rough from centuries of silence. Why have you woken us? Because the galaxy is dying, Sujin replied, and only humanity can save it. Minho looked at the other legends gathering around him. Men and women who had faced death countless times. Warriors who had never surrendered, never retreated, never stopped fighting. Then let us remind the stars what humans can do. The war for survival had begun. Kang Do-yeon stood alone in the center of the great chamber. Around him, 12 alien species watched from their raised platforms. Their eyes held no respect. Their faces showed only boredom and mild amusement. To them, he was nothing more than a messenger from a weak and young species. The chamber was beautiful. Crystal walls rose hundreds of meters high. Light from distant stars poured through the ceiling. This was Station Nexus Prime, the heart of galactic civilization. Here, the powerful species made decisions that shaped the lives of trillions. Humans had no real voice here. They were allowed to speak, but nobody truly listened. Do-yeon took a slow breath. He had practiced this moment for months. He knew they would not believe him. But he had to try? Honored members of the council, he began. His voice was calm and steady. 50 years ago, human deep space probes detected something at the edge of known space. We have studied it carefully since then. We have sent more probes. We have gathered data. And now I must warn you all. High Arbiter Velos leaned forward slightly. He was tall and thin, with pale blue skin and 4 eyes that never blinked. He led the council, and his species had ruled the stars for 10,000 years. To him, humans were children playing at civilization. "Go on, Ambassador," Velos said. His tone was polite but empty. "There is a force coming," Doyun continued. "We call it the Hollow Swarm. It is not a fleet. It is not an army. It is a living tide of creatures that consume everything in their path: planets, ships, entire civilizations. They leave nothing behind." Silence filled the chamber. Then slowly laughter began. It started with one delegate and spread to others. The sound echoed off the crystal walls. Doyun did not react. He had expected this. "Ambassador Kang," Velos said, still smiling. "Your species has been part of our union for only 300 years. You are new to the galaxy. You do not understand how things work here." He gestured at the other delegates. "We have existed for millennia. We have faced threats before. There is nothing in the darkness that we cannot handle." "With respect, High Arbiter, you have never faced anything like this," Doyun replied. "The swarm destroyed civilizations that existed before your species learned to walk. We found their ruins. We found their warnings. Nobody listened to them either." The laughter stopped. Some delegates looked uncomfortable. Others looked angry. A delegate from the Korvathi Empire stood up. His species was known for their warriors and their pride. "You dare compare us to dead civilizations? Humans are useful for labor and entertainment. Nothing more. You should know your place." Doyun felt the old anger rise in his chest, but he pushed it down. Getting angry would not help. It never did. "I am not here to insult anyone," he said quietly. "I am here to save lives. The swarm will reach the outer colonies in less than 5 years. We need to prepare now. We need to build defenses. We need to work together." Velos waved his hand dismissively. "Enough, we have heard your warning. We will consider it. You may leave." Doyun did not move. "You will not consider it. You will forget about it the moment I leave this chamber. You will go back to your politics and your trade agreements. And when the swarm comes, billions will die because you refuse to act." Now the chamber was truly silent. Nobody spoke to the council this way. Nobody. Velos's 4 eyes narrowed. "Be careful, Ambassador. Your species exists in this union because we allow it. Do not test our patience." Doyun looked at the High Arbiter for a long moment. Then he looked at each of the other delegates in turn. He wanted to remember their faces. He wanted to remember this moment. "When the swarm comes," he said slowly, "do not say we did not try to save you." He turned and walked out of the chamber. His footsteps echoed in the silence. Behind him, the delegates began to whisper among themselves. Some were angry. Some were confused. None were worried they would learn. 3 days later, Doyun returned to Earth. A transport took him from the orbital station down to a facility hidden deep in the mountains. The facility had no name on any map. Officially, it did not exist. Park Sojin was waiting for him at the entrance. She was a small woman with gray hair and sharp eyes. She was the director of Project Lazarus, and she was one of the few people who knew humanity's greatest secret. They walked together through long corridors. Security doors opened and closed behind them. Guards stood at every corner, but they did not salute or speak. This was not a place for ceremony. Did they listen? Sujin asked. She already knew the answer. "No," Doyun said. They laughed. Sujin nodded slowly. "Then we have no choice." They reached the final door. It was massive, made of metal that was older than the Union itself. Sujin placed her hand on a scanner. The door groaned and began to open. Beyond it lay a vast underground chamber. The ceiling disappeared into darkness above, and filling the chamber, row after row after row, were thousands of pods. Each pod held a human body in frozen sleep. Frost-covered ancient armor. Weapons from forgotten wars lay beside sleeping hands. These were the legends. Warriors from humanity's darkest hours. Soldiers who had fought when extinction seemed certain. They had been preserved for centuries, waiting for the day they would be needed again. How long until the swarm arrives? Sujin asked. Our best estimate is 3 to 5 years. Sujin looked at the sleeping warriors. Her expression was sad but determined. Then we begin phase 2. It is time to wake them. Somewhere in the darkness, a machine hummed to life. Lights began to flicker on the pods. The temperature in the chamber started to rise. The galaxy had refused to listen. They had laughed at humanity's warnings. They had called humans weak and primitive. They were about to learn how wrong they were.